Japanese Breakfast, Jubilee album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest from Michelle Zauner, aka Japanese Breakfast. She's been at it for a few years now. She released her debut album, Psycho Pump, a while back, and I thought it was pretty good, actually. And you know what? While sort of the ending of this album, the finale of this album, got a little bit too spacey and inconsistent for my liking, I was enamored with Michelle's very breezy, almost spacey blend of indie pop and experimental pop and dream pop. Now, her follow-up album, Soft Sounds from Another Planet, was a very good album. Boyish, machinist, body is a blade. These are some of the best tracks Michelle had put to tape to date. But for my liking, I felt like this album was a little confused at times. It didn't know what it wanted to be. It was trying to be dream rock and indie pop and even a little space rock at times. And when Michelle really focused on one of those, this album came off really great. It's when she tried to blend all three at once that things got a little inconsistent. But let me tell you, I have been so excited for this new one from her, mostly because the slew of singles coming out of this have been easily Michelle's best work to date. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with Paprika, and right off the bat, I love just how front and center Michelle is. She has gotten a ton of notoriety lately between this album coming out as well as her book that she just published. She's been all over the place. And honestly, this is easily one of her most upfront albums to date. Honestly, that's a great thing. This track is so colorful and full of life. I love the surreal imagery here, just how triumphant it all comes off. This is a wonderful intro. And then we have Be Sweet, which is one of my favorite tracks of the year. It is super sharp, incredibly catchy, and just has this feel-good energy all around that I just can't say no to. And that groove, it really just gets you going. This track just makes me feel so warm and fuzzy. I love this. Kokomo, Indiana, on the other hand, is a little bit more on the indie rock sector. It's very breezy. And I love Michelle's smoky vocals on this track. And this is just such a sweet track. There's such a sense of longing in her performance. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's genuinely heartbreaking at times, but for a modern love track, this is pretty solid all around. It's pretty breathtaking. And Slide Tackle, as far as the deep cut goes, this is easily my favorite one. This is good enough to be a single. Like, this is a real deep cut, and by that I mean, good God, this track is freaking deep, man. I love the pulsating beats. I love the smoky saxophones. It's such a unique sound. This is really where I expected to hear most of her last album. I adore this, and I love just how hard those horns go in the final minute. If I really had to choose one track here that I was not into, it would be Tactics. And you know what? It's a shame because this is the closest thing to a ballad we get here. And you know what? Her vocals and her lyrics are on point. But everything else about this track is so tame compared to the rest of the album. This sounds like the sort of track that would have shown up on her last album and I just would have been kind of shrugging at. But even Michelle's later risks really pull off. Posing in Bondage, this one took a little bit more for me to get into, but I love it. It is much more dramatic and slow. But it's also one of the most telling tracks here and opens up so many doors for the future of Michelle's music. It's easily one of the weirder and more experimental tracks here, but she handles herself wonderfully, and I love the lyrical themes of having this connection with someone. Sit, on the other hand, is much heavier. It's practically got these like industrial synths on here. Goes deep into monogamy and human feelings, and it's done really well. But this is also really fascinating for me because it's on the experimental side. It's pretty far out at times, but it has that human touch to it. This is kind of where I always really wanted to hear Japanese Breakfast's music. Savage Good Boy, on the other hand, is a shot out of left field, and I mean that musically and lyrically. This one's a weird one. Lyrically, it brings in thoughts of greed and does so in a really odd way. But it's a great commentary. One that's also a real musical risk, one that pays off too. And then we have In Hell, and oh my God, this track is heartbreaking. I mean, it's super catchy, but it is so tragic, which is something I haven't felt since, like, I don't know, the Magnetic Fields. Not only that, but Michelle's super lonely sounding performance here is just heart-wrenching. It's one of the most upfront and visual tracks here, but it's easily one of the most memorable as well. And Posing for Cars is a fantastic finale. This is how you do a slower, more ballad track from Japanese Breakfast. lyrically, this is a real cornerstone of the album, and it's so much more interesting than like Tactics was. And you know what? It's not one of the more out of the box tracks here. It's not the biggest risk, but it's gorgeous. It's heartfelt. It's beautiful at times, but it's also a freaking huge statement. It sums up so much about this album and more. I really can't have pictured any other finale here. So I think this new Japanese Breakfast album is A, by far her best, and B, just an all-around fantastic album. This is easily Michelle's most confident songs to date, and she sounds better than ever. And from start to finish, these are tracks. This is an album that knows what it wants to be and does it wonderfully too. We get the best of both worlds here. We get inescapable indie pop bangers like Be Sweet, and we also get the more tragic side to them as well with tracks like In Hell. I've got very little bad to say about this album. It's one of my favorite things I've heard all year. I'm feeling a light 9 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.